Welcome to Legends of the Flame, where guardian dragons watch over the night, and every story is told in calm and quiet light. High above the sleeping earth, beyond the tallest mountains and the distant silver rivers, there are pathways that cannot be seen from the ground. They cross the open sky like gentle roads, winding between pale clouds and drifting toward the far horizon. No stones marked their direction, no signs showed where they began or where they ended, only the wind remembered the way. During the quietest hours, when the stars were fading and morning had not yet arrived, soft currents moved through the upper sky. They passed over moonlit forests, silent villages, dark lakes, and fields resting beneath a blanket of mist. Most creatures never noticed them, yet one guardian dragon had spent many peaceful years learning how to listen. His name was Skydrift Warden. Skydrift scales were the color of early sunlight touching white clouds. Soft gold shimmered along the edges of his wings, and his long silver tail moved slowly behind him as he flew. His eyes held the calm light of the horizon. He did not command the wind or ask it to carry him. Instead, he followed wherever its quietest currents wished to go. Each night, Skydrift rested upon a high ridge at the edge of the horizon realm. From there, he could see the world stretching far below. Clouds gathered beneath the ridge like a silent ocean, and the stars reflected softly across their surface. The air was always cool and still there. It carried the faint scent of rain from distant lands and the warmth of places where the sun had only recently disappeared. Skydrift would remain on the ridge until the last sounds of the waking world had faded. Then he would lift his head and wait. He listened for the gentle movement of air across his horns. He noticed the smallest change in the feathers along his wings, and when the quiet winds finally arrived, he opened his wings and stepped into the sky. The wind never rushed him. It moved beneath his wings with a steady, peaceful rhythm, lifting him above the ridge and carrying him toward the sleeping clouds. Skydrift flew without effort. His wings rose and fell slowly, matching the calm movement of the air. Below him, the clouds formed long valleys and rounded hills. Some were silver beneath the moon, others held the faintest shade of blue. Skydrift passed over them as though traveling across a dream. The quiet winds often led him along a different path each night. Sometimes it carried him above ancient forests where the treetops swayed gently beneath the stars. Sometimes it guided him toward distant mountains, whose snowy peaks shone in the moonlight. On other nights, he traveled above the sea, where the waves below moved in slow, repeating lines. Skydrift never needed to know where the path would end. Following the wind was enough. As he traveled, he watched over the world below. A farmhouse rested beneath a wide oak tree, its windows dark and peaceful. A small village slept beside a winding river. Farther away, a lonely lantern burned beside a quiet road before slowly fading into the mist. Skydrift saw these places without disturbing them. His shadow crossed the clouds, but the earth beneath him remained calm. His wings made no sound louder than a soft breath. Near the center of the horizon realm stood a place known as the Still Sky. It was a wide stretch of open air where the wind slowed and the clouds became almost motionless. The first light of morning often appeared there before touching anywhere else. Skydrift visited the Still Sky whenever the quiet winds led him near it. He would glide above the pale clouds and watch the darkness begin to soften. One by one, the stars disappeared. The deep blue sky became lighter. A thin golden glow formed along the distant edge of the world. Skydrift loved this moment most of all. There was no sudden change. Morning arrived slowly, spreading warmth across the sky as gently as a blanket being placed over someone already asleep. The clouds began to glow beneath him. Their silver edges turned to gold, then soft shades of peach and rose. The light passed across Skydrift scales, making them shimmer like polished stone beneath a candle flame. He allowed the wind to carry him through the new colors. On one especial peaceful morning, the quiet winds guided Skydrift farther than usual. They carried him beyond the still sky and toward a region of clouds he had never crossed before. The clouds there rose in tall, graceful towers. Narrow paths of sunlight passed between them, creating glowing corridors through the open air. Skydrift followed one of these corridors, his wings moving in an easy rhythm. He felt no need to hurry. There was nowhere else he needed to be. At the end of the glowing path, he found a small island of stone floating among the clouds. It was covered in pale grass that moved gently in the breeze. A single tree grew at its center. Its silver leaves whispered softly whenever the wind passed through them. Skydrift landed beside the tree and folded his wings. For a while, he simply listened. The leaves moved, the grass swayed, clouds drifted slowly around the island. The sounds were quiet, but together they formed a soft and peaceful song. Skydrift understood why the winds had brought him there. The floating island was a resting place. It had waited above the clouds for many years, visited only by the breeze and the morning light. The dragon lowered himself beside the silver tree. He rested his head upon his front legs and watched the sky brighten. Warm sunlight touched his wings. The breeze passed gently over his scales. And for the first time that night, Skydrift closed his eyes. The quiet winds continued on without him. They traveled past the floating island and across the horizon realm. They moved over mountains and forests, rivers and sleeping towns. Yet, a small part of their peaceful rhythm remained around the resting dragon. It moved through the silver leaves above him. It brushed across the grass. It curled softly around his folding wings. Skydrift rested until the sun had risen fully above the clouds. When he opened his eyes, the world was glowing with warm morning light. He stood slowly and looked toward the distant horizon. Quiet winds had returned. They waited at the edge of the island, moving softly through the pale grass. Skydrift spread his wings. The sunlight passed through them, turning their golden edges almost transparent. Then he stepped from the island and allowed the wind to lift him once more. The journey back to his ridge was calm and unhurried. He passed through the glowing cloud towers and crossed the wide, still sky. Below him, the waking world began to stir. Smoke rose gently from a distant chimney. Birds moved between the treetops. Sunlight appeared upon rivers and rooftops. Skydrift watched quietly from above. His night of guarding was ending, and another peaceful day was beginning. When he reached the high ridge, he landed upon the smooth stone where his journey had begun. The clouds still covered the valleys below, but the morning sun shone brightly across their surface. Skydrift folded his wings and settled into his resting place. The quiet winds passed around him one final time. They carried the memory of silver leaves, glowing clouds, and floating island hidden high above the world. Then they drifted away toward the horizon. Skydrift lowered his head and closed his eyes. He knew the winds would return when the sky grew dark again. They would bring new paths to follow and new quiet places to watch over. Until then, the horizon realm was peaceful. The clouds moved slowly, sunlight remained warm, and the guardian dragon rested beneath the endless sky. Far below the world continued its gentle rhythm. But high upon the ridge, everything was still. Skydrift breathed slowly, the wind softened, the clouds drifted on, and the sky held him safely in its quiet light. And as the night grows still, the guardians continue their watch. and the light remains with you until morning. If you enjoy calm dragon legends and quiet guardian stories, subscribe to Legends of the Flame and return again for another tale from the realms where the dragons still watch.